You know, when it comes to the PS5, I have started wondering if we are actually in the wrong for perceiving that it is a next-gen console, when in reality it is just an expansion or remaster of the PS4 sold at a luxury price, because it is currently quote-unquote the best console for playing PS4 games, and I am not joking. We are 6 years into this generation, and the best way to experience the PS5 is still by playing those old PS4 games. But the real failure isn't just the lack of games or the fact that they just jacked the price up, by the way, with the base model hitting a price of $650 and the Pro at a staggering $900. Which we will cover later, don't worry. The recent issue is that instead of innovating with new IPs, Sony's focus is more on ownership of games of their players. Like, what do you mean? Sony just officially or unofficially, no one knows, implemented a 30 days DRM kill switch for all digital games. Which means that even if you paid full price for your games, if you don't ping into Sony servers every 30 days, your entire library turns into a fucking brick. Come on Sony, at this point just watch your own instructional video.
Thanks.
PlayStation.
Remember when the PS5 was marketed on primary console benefits? Sony is now telling its users that even if your console is set as the primary, the 30-day check cannot be bypassed. This is the point where we need to really stop and wonder what ownership really means in 2026. For decades, the deal was simple. You buy a game and it's yours. Or basically just live in an area with bad internet. Your games would still work. But as of May 2026, every new game you buy on the PlayStation Store comes with a hidden timer. Sony has named it Valid Period. When this timer runs out, you'll see a log icon, and when you try to play your game, you will get an error saying your license couldn't be verified. Now, it is yet to be official, but according to the AI agents and support of Sony, it is official. So basically, game ownership does not exist anymore. It's just a subscription at this point for games of a console that we are witnessing making history for all the wrong reasons. It is the first console in the entire PlayStation bloodline to actually get more expensive after 6 damn years it has launched. Usually by year 6, a console is sitting in a bargain price or getting a massive price cut to clear inventory. But not with this one, boys. If we look at the numbers, here is a chart which shows us that damn, this console really is something. If we look at the PS4, a thing to note is that in 2013, the PS4 was launched at $400, and 6 years later, by 2019, it was easy to find a PS4 Slim for $250 to $300. That is a 30 to 40% price drop, while the PS4 is seeing a 30% increase in its price somehow. This really makes me want to talk about the Sony's revolutionary business model, which is named the reverse discount. Usually when you buy technology, like phones, laptops, even something minor like a toaster, the price goes down as the tech gets older. It's a pretty basic concept called basically how the world works. But Sony are different. They are defying the laws of economics. And don't even get me started on the glorious PS5 Pro. They launched that thing at a very bold price, and then within months, before even most people could find one, slapped another $150 hike on it, bringing it to $900 for a console that doesn't even come with a disk drive. But hey, maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe Sony's just charging us $900 for a box because they really need that money to keep their premium services running, right? Well, let's talk about those services now. In 2023, they hiked the price of the annual essential tier by 33%, with the US 12-month price rising from $60 to a $80 price tag. Then came April 2025, where they hit us again with another 15 to 25% solid price increase. And now in the 4th month of 2026, again there are rumors of another price increase in the PS Plus. Think about the logic here. They raised the price of the console, the most expensive in history. They raised the price of the online services to record highs. Sony's own financial report from February 2026 shows that while their hardware sales are actually dropping down 16%, their operating profit is still up by 22%. So ironic, I wonder how. Another question, where are the actual games? Think about it, we are paying record high prices for the console and the subscription, yet the PlayStation exclusives are still an endangered species. Usually by year 6, a console has a library of legends. But in 2026, the PS5's identity isn't new exclusive game, it is still remastered. They're remastering games that were already playable on the PS5 day 1. We got The Last of Us 2 remastered, Until Dawn remastered, and Horizon Zero Dawn remastered. It's like Sony is running a museum, not gonna lie. If you look at the games that are truly exclusive to the PS5, the list is embarrassingly short. Now yes, we can give Sony a bit leverage here that releasing games cross-gen was still their good deed, because when the PS5 was released, the whole world was going through a crisis. So cross-gen releases was actually a good decision. But still, we cannot ignore the fact that a console's average lifespan is 7 to 8 years, which means that PS5 only has 2 to 3 years left on its life cycle, and here we are still talking about the issue of lack of games. Now, there is no doubt that PS5 is much stronger than the old generation, but what's the use of it if the gamers don't have games which actually test its capabilities? An important part of every console, or the thing that makes it memorable or unique, is the experience it offers. Think back to the PS2's massive library or the PS4's streak of world-class exclusives. Now, in my opinion, this happened because Sony spent the first half of the console generation flopping around working on live service games that nobody wanted, like Concord, that lasted exactly 14 days before being wiped from existence. As a matter of fact, in 2022, Sony announced plans to release over 10 live service games by March 2026, but in January 2025, it was reported that at least 8 of the original 12 planned projects had been cancelled following the epic performance of Concord. Also, it is worth mentioning and had to shut down a very major studio called Bluepoint. Sony also closed many other major studios as well. But coming back to the point, Sony only started releasing their major hitters halfway through the life of PlayStation 5, which is very odd considering that now we are getting leaks about the PS6 coming out in 2027 or 2028. And if you want to see the ultimate example of Sony's failure, look at the PsVr 2. They charge you $550 for a headset that costs equal or more than the console itself, and then what? They stopped making games for it. By early 2026, the first party lineup for VR is a literal ghost town. Even Astro Bot, the one character they built for the VR, skipped the headset entirely. And in the latest 2026 State of Play, nothing. Not a single major first party announcement for the headset. Reports confirm that they had to pause production in 2024 just to clear out the unsold boxes. Sony realized that they couldn't sell enough headsets to their own fans, so they released a $60 adapter just so you could plug the PsVr 2 into a PC. On paper, it sounds like an upgrade, but in reality, it is a red flag for VR. As it looks, they have officially given up on building a PlayStation VR ecosystem. Sony's first-party output for the PsVR 2 has been totally quiet. Third-party developers are the only reason anyone is dusting off their headsets. Let's talk about the controller of PlayStation. The Sony DualSense currently retails for $75 to $80, but the problem many people have faced is the analog stick drift, in which the character or the camera starts moving on its own without you controlling it. The issue is so common that it doesn't feel like bad luck anymore. In fact, in 2021, Sony was hit with a massive lawsuit filed by a law firm. It alleges that Sony knowingly used defective components in the DualSense, components that are almost identical to the ones that were already failing in the old DualShock 4 controllers. So the real question is, did Sony actually do anything to fix this? While the case was later dropped, but Sony actually didn't do anything. They are still using the same potentiometer technology in their standard DualSense controllers. They didn't switch to Hall effect sensors, which are actually known to tackle this issue. At this point in the life cycles, the PS4 was still ahead of the PS5 by nearly 2.6 million units. And while that gap might not be that massive, it says a lot more than people realize. Because maybe the PS5's flaws didn't get ignored because they weren't there. Maybe they got ignored because the PlayStation brand grew hugely during its PS4 time. Plus, Sony isn't winning because they are doing a good job. They are winning because one of their only competition decided to stop competing as well. Microsoft is busy porting games to the PS5 and focusing on the Game Pass more. But that's a different topic. Basically, Sony doesn't have to compete with anyone. And when there's nobody truly forcing you to compete, you don't really have to fight for every consumer anymore.